What is going on, everybody? 'Tis I, the enigma of the gun airwaves, Miyanovich, welcoming you to Season 3 of the Liberal Gun Owners Lens podcast, where unprecedented perspectives are packed into the cargo hold for the LGO Lens spaceship Voyagio.
That's fucking Italian.
Don't believe that evolution is possible with guns and public safety in America? It's already happening, y'all. Minds are evolving. Think guns versus public safety is the only game in town, do ya? Think culture war is the big boss, do ya? Then keep your ass in the past. Everyone else, all aboard! Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Liberal Gun Owners Lens podcast. First episode of the 5th season. It is March. And I have not made a podcast for a few months. And this is because I really am at the end of Law Pillar A, the next part of the Liberal Gun Owners Lens research project that's about to be published. And for any of you who have been involved in something extensive, like a master's thesis or a PhD or a book, something along those lines, you will know that when you get to the end of something really, really important, the needs of that phenomenon grow and grow and grow. So as David Umani reminded me recently in a phone call, the last 20% of something sometimes takes as much effort as the first 80% of it. I've uncovered a few things in the last two chapters that I didn't know I was going to discover. I came across a few things. And one of them is a pretty decent line on some observations about the RAND Corporation longitudinal study, the Initiative on Gun Violence Policy. And I came across a few disingenuous things or inconsistent things, I should say, connected to some disingenuous things. So much of the thesis of Law Pillar A deals with how humans believe that the law is more powerful than it actually is. Certainly in the world of guns, people believe that gun laws are going to have more effect than they actually will. And this work is basically a thesis about why people believe that the law is so effective when it isn't. But there are many other smaller concepts inside of the work that are important. And one of them is the gun control phenomenon is filled with, and I will quote Jonathan Haidt when he says, when he uses the phrase dereliction and folly to describe what happens inside of the academic world a lot with information and dealing with data and information. There is dereliction and folly inside of the gun control reality, and that includes inside of the research reality, the quote unquote scientific research reality. So I found a few things that are quite important in regards to making that case where the RAND Corporation blatantly overstates some numbers. And those overstated numbers then have shown up in the reports and content of many, many different news articles and in the output of typical gun control political entities like Everytown and Giffords. So the RAND Corporation overstates something tremendously, and then Giffords and Everytown goes out and repeats this overstatement as if it's the gospel and factual when it isn't. And then the news media broadcasts what Giffords and Everytown says. So I have uncovered some very direct evidence for how the gun control reality and the research reality and the political reality skew information in favor of their bias and their prejudice against gun ownership. And so that's obviously something that's important. It was something that I knew was occurring. Where there's smoke, there's fire. There are other indications. But here we have the executive director of a gun organization finding some direct evidence for it. And that's a pretty big responsibility. So this was discovered in the 11th hour as I was closing things up. And so I'm fucking open for business again. And the last section that I'm doing here on what I call the real cheese of gun laws is turning into something bigger because I discovered this evidence of Jonathan Haidt's dereliction and folly. So that's what's going on. Look, whatever you think is important about guns, all of you, I don't blame you for, the amount of focus that you put on the Trump regime. And there's a lot of concern out there for marginalized people and guns. But look, there's more going on than that. There's more to guns than marginalized people and guns. And all we fucking focus on is marginalized people and guns. Now, while it's important, I will never say that it's not. It is very important. It's one of about 10 things that we need to be good at in order to win against the morons on the other side. Okay? And that's just politics in general, and that's also guns. There are things that we need to uncover, discover, talk about, argue, and win at that don't have to do with marginalized people and guns. And if all we do is focus on that, then we lose. That's the reality. That's the reality. People who are activists in this space want to paint the entirety of reality, the entirety of it, as if reality runs on what happens with marginalized people. And I can barely even say these kinds of things in public without people saying, well, geez, I didn't know Randy was a racist bigot or whatever, but I'm not saying I'm not down with it. I'm not saying I'm not in support of it. What I'm saying is it's not the only fucking thing that's important. And this is one of those super important examples of that because I am focused on another area of guns. I found something that's really, really also important. And we need people who are in these other areas finding other things that are important, right? So moving forward, this year is going to be about covering the law. And it's not just about there are other things other than the equal application of law to all people that matter for the law. We need to be able to deal with the issue of equal application. It's a very important one, but all the other shit too. And so I'm in another area, and that's most likely what we're going to be talking about this year is the utility and the function of the law itself. Its equal application we are going to talk about later, but there are some fundamental issues with the law that have nothing to do with the downtrodden of society. There are fundamental issues with the law that have to do with whether or not it actually works in many instances. And it does not. It does not. It is not as an effective tool in society for problem solving as people make it out to be. And there is evidence of this, and it is important to understand this because I don't care where we end up in the future. You're going to have to argue for your fucking gun rights in the future. You're going to have to fight against gun control in the future. And that means you need to be able to win against those arguments. And you cannot win for your gun rights if the only arguments you have are about the unequal treatment of people when it comes to gun laws, or the phenomenon of disabled people and women and people of color getting into guns, where you can't win all of the arguments if that's the only thing that you're good at, if that's the only thing that you think matters. We need to move our brains into other spaces also, and we need to get into the very mechanics and the bones of the law and how it functions. We need to be able to do that. We need to be able to understand why Homo sapiens like projectiles, We need to be able to understand why it is that guns didn't drop out of the sky. So George Washington, because Jesus was like, I like white people and George Washington. And he dropped guns out of the sky for white nationalist Americans. Okay. That's not fucking real. And how do we know that's not real? Because if we just use basic anthropology and some of the genetic science, we can see that Homo sapiens have been involved in projectiles the entire time they've been a species. And there would be no guns if it weren't for the microlithic engineers of South Africa, right? Which means that if you like guns, you sure as fuck need to like black people. Because if it weren't for black people, you wouldn't have guns. Why? Why is that so? Because if it weren't for black people, you wouldn't be a white person. Because why? Because we were all fucking black at one point. You see, we need to be able to argue from all angles and win all of our arguments with all of the information that's out there. How do we do that? We have to use anthropology. We have to use jurisprudence. We have to use culture and society and sociology. We have to use social psychology. We have to use psychology. We have to use philosophy. We have to be able to do all of these things, right? We have to be able to tell people why when a gun controller wants to control your fucking guns, that they're not just wrong based upon rights. They're wrong based upon their predetermination about how effective the law is in solving issues related to homicide and suicide and guns and domestic violence and color on color internecine violence and mass shootings. We need to be able to argue and tell people why it is that you just can't pile gun laws to the sky and get maximize effect against these problems, because the law just isn't that effective generally, right? We need to be able to argue from all angles and talk about all things. So this year is going to be about talking about that. And I am definitely, for the most part, done doing interviews with other people. For 4 years now, you've gotten all kinds of viewpoints from all kinds of people. There's been women on here. There's been gay people on here. There's black dudes on here. There's Jewish dudes on here. There's white ass middle of the road honkies. Okay. You've got all that now. Check. Liberals own guns too. Check. Marginalized people are getting into guns. Check. Okay. We're not going to spend the rest of forever just doing that. There are other things that we need to know about and other things that we need to be good at arguing and other things that we need to be more knowledgeable about. So I'm not going to be emphasizing other people's voices much, right? For the next 2 years, it's going to be just, I'm going to have people on, but it's going to be probably mostly me. And, in 2 years, I'll wrap this up, because I need to do what I always finish what I start, and I'm going to finish this thing up in it'll be 6 seasons, and then that will be it. And why will that be it? Well, that will be it because there's something else that's happening. And that other thing is it doesn't matter what the problem is in society that you're trying to solve. No one can solve anything with a bunch of people that talk but do nothing. And I cannot align myself with such things anymore. And I won't. I've stopped. And I can't put out exceptional effort, whether you think that this podcast or other things I've done are worth it. By the way, as an aside, I'm not sure if you guys know this, but the reason why things are so Randy-centric is because I tried for years to get other people involved and they wouldn't get up off of their ass. And if your idea is, well, Randy, you just don't do the right things because you don't put unicorns and rainbows up and you don't make the liberal gun owners logo look like a woman and you don't have pictures of disabled dwarves going down slides into a soup kitchen to help the world. Like, I've done everything. I've given thousands of dollars away to organizations that help marginalized people. I've given ammo away for free. I've given over $10,000 of my guns and gear away for free. I've purchased trainings for people that are a part of their house of worship security team. I've done everything. I've asked for help from everyone, every kind of person I've asked help from. And the answer overwhelmingly, not in people's words, but through their actions, is no thanks. I have donuts to eat and other shit to do. That's why things are so Randy heavy. I didn't want this to do. This is like, guns are not the center of my life. I didn't want to be the executive director of an organization where I'm the only one who sticks his neck out. And by the way, that's exactly what happens. No one wants to step forward with me because of their wife and their wife's opinion or the business that they work for. They don't want their boss to see. That's why I'm up in front all by myself and my name's all over everything. And I did not want this. This is not what I want. This isn't my life. Guns aren't this fucking important. They're important. Self-defense is important. Self-preservation is about as important as it gets. Equality in the world, not having to tolerate this just egregious fucking clown in the White House. There are so many things that are really, really important. And guns are just a part of it. I don't want that to be the center of everything I am and I do. And the reason why I've centered it so much is because there's a huge once in a lifetime opportunity here. And I have asked you motherfuckers for years for help and nobody does shit. How many people listening to this right now give $5 a year, let alone a month? Not even 50% of you. And here's the thing about Randy. I'm going to win. I'm going to solve the problems. That's what I do. I just can't do it with people who are fucking half-asses who don't support. I'm not putting the really highly imperfect gold that I create out here for free anymore. I'm only doing the last 2 years of the podcast because some of you who listen are really amazing people and you support, and you guys are really, really making a difference. I'm doing it for you guys, but I'm going to complete what I said I was going to complete. But other than that, Randy's efforts of like putting in while other people ride, you can't call yourself a liberal and ride on other people's efforts. You're not a fucking liberal if you do that. If you're on the internet and you're shopping for guns all the time, you're talking shit about Trump and looking at your guns and shit, and you're buying your ho-hos and you don't even give $5, you're not a fucking liberal cat. I don't know what you are. You might not like conservatism and you might not like bigotry, but that doesn't make you a fucking liberal. I cannot continue to produce exceptional things for a bunch of people who use it and never say thank you or do fucking anything like that. Is over. It is over. I'm going to put forth in the next 2 years what I need to put forth, wrap a bow on this and leave it up so people in the future can discover it. If they want to. There is more to do with guns. There's more effect that we need to have. And there are problems related to guns that can be solved and can be dealt with in a better fashion. Here's what I'm going to tell you guys. I'm going to do it, but I sure as fuck ain't going to be able to align myself with liberal gun owners in order to achieve that. You cats have had your fucking chance. You've had your shot. I was here. You've had your shot. I'm going to solve these problems. And how fucked up is it that so many of us spend so much time on the internet waving our finger at the other side? And there's an opportunity here to really, really impact something. And you cats don't even fucking get behind it for real. But you're on the internet like you're the shit. Like you're the righteous shit. You're the righteous fucking champion of the downtrodden and doing the right thing. But here's a once in a lifetime opportunity and you fucking cats that are listening, you can't even throw 5 at me in a year. I'm going to move on, and it's unfortunate. You should mark this down as there was a liberal who wanted to get it on and actually get it done. And I actually had to move away from, caucusing with liberals to make it happen. How fucked up is that? You know, but it's par for the course, man. It's par for the course around here. This is what this is. And I'm going to have to move on to solve problems, but I can't use the name liberal gun owners or associate with liberals who own guns in order to do it, because cats don't get up off their fucking asses. Think about that. Think about that when you think about Donald Trump in the White House, because that's not this whole thing with me having to move forward without a lot of you. That's not the only place that this say fucking talk out of your mouth all the time, do nothing affects the world. I assure you that Donald Trump is in the White House because of many different things, but because of the same phenomenon. And whatever a person thinks the future is to hold, whether it's Mad Max or democracy falling apart. By the way, we've never had democracy in the first place. We didn't have democracy in the first place. But I assure you, a lot of it has to do with a bunch of grown-ass men on the internet, all talk, not doing anything. I assure you that's a part of it. You can't be that way and not have a future that falls apart. And as I've said before, this is mostly about middle-aged men. You cannot sit at fucking home in your computer room all day or whatever and be like, the world needs to change, doom scroll, bitch about Trump. But all you do is fucking go to work, come home, sit down in front of the computer. And anyone who's interested, you know, in really, really getting it on, you'll be able to find me for sure. I'll be doing other things, but I sure as hell am not giving any more of myself to this phenomenon like this. I have a couple years left to do some important things. I'll be definitely continuing on with the Liberal Gun Owners Lens research project because I finish what I start. But there's no more of this shit, man. There's no more of that. I'm just fucking wiped. I'm wiped because it's like being in a relationship with a person who doesn't give back, and many of you know what that's like. In terms of finishing the Liberal Gun Owners Lens Law Pillar A, man, I'm like the dude that's been trying to climb his way out of the desert for 40 days or 100 or 365. And I'm on the sand and I'm fucking out of water, and I just have one more dune. I just have one more dune to get over. And then something new is going to happen. And I hope many of you can join me and support that, because we're going to need people to buy copies of this new work or donate some money so we can give some copies away for free to some critical people. But it's definitely not going to be a free thing that you can just have. You're going to have to fucking pay for it. But I'm in the desert. I'm in the last dune, and I'm just like, I'm about to drink my own pee. Like, that's where I am. Like, I'm so exhausted mentally from this. And if any of you who've ever done a PhD, it's very similar. Now I don't even want to stop to drink my own pee. I just want to finish. And so I will drink my own piss when I get on the other side of the last dune. Oh my God. So there's more to come, everybody. There's more to come.